My presentation is over cytomegalovirus, or CMV, and norovirus. The pathogen overview for CMV is a viral infection caused by the human herpes virus 5. It is in the herpes viridae family, and it has double-stranded DNA. For norovirus, it is also a viral infection. It is caused by viruses in the Calliciviridae family. It has single-stranded DNA, and it causes gastroenteritis. The morphology for CMV, it has double-stranded linear DNA. It's about 230,000 base pairs. It has an icosahedral capsid. There's also an envelope and a tegument layer, as you can see in this picture over here. The envelope is on the outside, and the tegument layer is in between that and the capsid. Its full size is about 150 to 200 nanometers, which is one of the largest viruses. Norovirus morphology, it has single-stranded RNA. It's about 7,500 base pairs, and it also has an icosahedral capsid, but there is no envelope, and the full size is about 27 to 40 nanometers, which obviously is a lot smaller than CMV. You can tell how big CMV actually is. Transmission for CMV, so it's usually through contact with contaminated body fluids like urine, saliva, blood, things like that. It could also be through organ transplants, blood transfusions, and childbirth, or bone marrow transplants. Norovirus is usually transmitted from contaminated food, contaminated surfaces, and then touching those, and then touching your face or mouth, or direct contact with someone that has it, and it is very contagious. So for CMV, some signs in healthy people, there often is just no symptoms in healthy people, but sometimes you could get fatigue, fever, sore throat, or swollen lymph nodes. And then in immunocompromised people, it could develop into pneumonia in the lungs, hepatitis, infection in the liver, retinitis, infection in the eyes, and encephalitis, which is swelling in the brain. And then in newborns, it can cause hearing loss, vision loss, jaundice, and seizures. For norovirus, the symptoms are usually nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach cramps, and fever. And then there's a risk of dehydration, especially in immunocompromised people. So, if left untreated, for CMV, it stays dormant for life, meaning inactive. It's usually inactive, but it can be reactivated. In immunocompromised people, it can cause severe organ damage, like I said in the previous slide. And then in infants, it can cause developmental delays, permanent hearing, or vision loss. For norovirus, it usually resolves itself in 1 to 3 days. For healthy people, in immunocompromised people, it might just take a little bit longer than that. And again, it can cause severe dehydration. So treatment for CMV, there is no cure. They are working on a vaccine, but it can be treated with antivirals. So Ganciclovir is the top left picture. It's usually given through an IV. And then valganciclovir is just the oral medication, oral version of that. And then the last two, those are for CMV that is resistant to the other two. And then for norovirus, there is no antiviral viral treatment. You just may need rehydration from IV fluids. If you need it, maybe Tylenol and antidiarrheals. So, prevention for CMV, there is no approved vaccine, but they are working on one. Hygiene practices like washing hands, disinfecting surfaces, stuff like that. Practicing safe sex, avoid sharing food and drinks with other people, and then using antivirals for transplant patients. And then for norovirus, there's also no vaccine. They are working on one, but sometimes it'll come out with a new strand, which makes it really hard to develop a vaccine. Again, hygiene practices, hand washing, disinfecting surfaces, cooking seafood well, and then staying home when sick. Obviously, that doesn't do anything for you if you have it, but it does prevent other people from getting it from you. So, epidemiology. For CMV in the US, the seroprevalence was about 59% from 1988 to 1994, and then it went to about 50% from 1999 to 2004, and it's fairly stable because it is a lifelong infection. And then norovirus in the US, there's about 19 to 21 million cases a year, and only about 900 deaths per year. So that's pretty good compared to the amount of people that get it. In 2020, there was a big drop in cases because of COVID. Everyone was being very cautious because of that, staying inside, disinfecting everything really well, washing hands, social distancing. And then in 2025, the cases increased because of a new strain. So, some high-risk populations for CMV. It is common in low-income countries like Africa. It is higher in non-Hispanic Black populations, and it is more common in women because of childbirth. Norovirus is also more common in low-income countries. It affects all ages. So does CMV, but older adults and children are at a higher risk. Same thing for norovirus. And then immunocompromised people are at higher risk. So some outbreaks that happened for CMV, there was an outbreak in a geriatric ward of a hospital. There were 10 patients that had unexplained fevers. They were treated with antibiotics and nothing was working. They just could not figure out what it was. And then once they finally figured it out, it was too late. 6 of the patients did actually have CMV. The other 4 didn't. They don't know what their fever was from. It was likely spread by some of the healthcare staff, and all the patients died due to complications. They were old, but they weren't quite at that point yet. The CMV pushed them over the edge. And then the norovirus outbreak, there was one in 2025 in LA. So there were a bunch of people in a wildfire shelter. 28 people were infected. So what they did, they isolated them, they sanitized everything really well, they made sure they were hydrated, and it spread because of the packed living space. And there were no deaths from that. So some interesting facts. CMV can reinfect with a different strain, and that is called superinfection, which complicates vaccine development. And then for norovirus, it was named after Norwalk, Ohio, because that's where the first, one of the first outbreaks were. And it was first detected in 1968 from a preserved stool sample. So, some questions for CMV is how does CMV spread from person to person? And what happens to the virus after the initial infection? Does it stay in the body? Does it go away? And for norovirus, how long do the symptoms last? And how does norovirus spread from person to person? And then I have my references here.